Right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's session on getting started with no code for PMs. This event is hosted by Product Manager HQ, and super excited to bring you a little bit about no code today and how you can leverage it as a product manager. So let's get into it. A little bit about me before we begin. I'm a software engineer by training. Been developing websites and apps for many years at this point. Recently stumbled upon no code and got really interested in it and have been exploring more and more by the day. I'm also a digital creator, have been creating content for LinkedIn and other platforms for several months now, and have been teaching for different platforms also for several years now. So today, actually, before we get into that, I also wanted to talk about my personal no-code journey. So in 2020, I noticed the term no code, and I noticed a lot of different apps that qualified themselves as no code, and I ignored it. I wasn't sure. As a software engineer, the typical sort of reaction is that, oh, like it must be something for some hobby projects, or this is something that's just a marketing term. So I pretty much ignored it, and But 2021, I actually stumbled upon it again, and this time at work, at my job. So someone at my previous company had purchased a subscription to a platform, and they asked me like, hey, if we could use this for our upcoming project. So again, I said, okay, I'll look into it. And once I started exploring, I was really surprised at what that particular no-code tool was capable of, and that got me really interested in what else is out there. So I decided to do a challenge in 2022, which was a 30 days of no-code challenge that a lot of you might have noticed on LinkedIn. So pretty much for 30 days, it actually took much longer than that, but I explored 30 different things, and I tried to build several MVPs and projects using no-code only. And and the rest is history. Like at that point, at the end of the 30-day period, I was fully convinced as to that this is moving in a great direction. There's a lot here that could be achieved without code, and so I just genuinely got really interested in it, and have been exploring it ever since, and bringing different how-to videos and content to my followers on various platforms. So. So today, so let's quickly talk about the agenda. And also, as I'm going through the presentation, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put it in the comments or chat. If I'm able to see them during the presentation, I'll try to answer, or we'll have some time at the end where I can look at all the questions and answer them as well. So if everything is looking good, so the agenda. So yeah, we'll start with no code. What is it? What it isn't? Then we talk about types of no code tools, how they're spread across different categories, and I'll also give you an example of different tools in each categories. Next up, we'll talk about a little bit of the learning path. So, if you are absolutely new to this world, you have never developed apps before, you don't have experience with coding, how could you sort of start, making your way into the no-code world, and how can you start developing apps and websites? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, this event is sort of catered towards product managers. So I'll also mention a few ways, you can leverage no-code as a product manager. Now, you're not going to replace, your development team, by yourself, obviously, but there's other ways where you can leverage it, and we'll talk about those. And then I'll give you a few sort of project ideas, just beginner level project ideas that you could hopefully build, at work or at your own time, just to kind of get familiar with the space and put everything together. And time permitting, I would also like to do a demo and build an app live here in this session. And finally, yeah, we'll have hopefully some time for Q&A. So let's do this. So what is no code? I stumbled upon this definition on actually a no code tools website. It's Adalo. There's a tool called Adalo, and I stumbled up on this definition on their website. And I really like this one. So it says, no code is the art of creating a unique solution to a problem that could have been written without code, or that could have been written with code, but the individuals have made it using visual methods without coding. So it touches on a few things here, that you're building a unique solution to a problem, right? Typically, when we're building apps, we're trying to solve a problem. And generally, we would go towards code, that, okay, we need to develop this app, we need to do it with code. But in case of no code, you are able to do it using certain tools that allow you to build that same application using visual methods without coding. So you're solving any problem, you're doing it without code, and otherwise, typically you would have gone to code to do it. So I really like this definition, and just to add to that, I always like to point out that it's not. There's a lot of debate here you'll see online about no code versus code, and I always like to point out that it is not about no code versus code. It is not about no code replacing code. It is just a spectrum, and it goes all the way from no code to code, and there's also low code along the way. So, and then there's different use cases for each sort of point in the spectrum. For a particular app, you might need 100% flexibility, and you might have corner cases that cannot be covered with no code tools today, so you would still go to code. Or you could have a case where you are building an app that a particular no code tool already supports 100%, and then it meets all your requirements and meets your scalability requirements, so maybe you go with no code. Or you meet in the middle and you say that like some parts of my app are going to be built using no code tools, and then for extending the functionality, we will jump into using a little bit of code snippets and then use low code. And there are tools that are specifically considered to be low code, meaning you can do most of the stuff visually, but then where it cannot support your use case, then you can bring in code on top of that, and that makes it a low code tool. So again, it's not one versus the other. It's just about choosing the right one for your particular use case. I also like to point out that no code has also become a little bit of a marketing term. So you will see, I'm not saying necessarily the names that I mentioned here are using that, but you will see, someone tweets out a list of no code tools, or they talk about, I use this particular tool as a no code tool. You'll see them on landing pages, but going back to the definition of no code, in my mind, things on the left, for example, Zoom or Canva or cooking, for that example, these are not no code tools. So because you're not building anything that otherwise you would have done with code here. So but on the right, Notion, Glide, Webflow, Bubble, all those things, these are what are considered to be your no-code tools, because here you're able to build something that and solve a problem for which otherwise you would have used code. So I just like to point that out, that beware of where no-code is being used as a marketing term, or it's actually helping you solve a real problem. And also, there was the survey done that I like to mention, because it is a little bit of a weird sort of when you type it out, do you type no space code or do you type no dash code? So most people prefer dash. You can take your pick. I'm definitely team dash, but doesn't really matter. If you are confused, here's some data for you. And then finally, to wrap this section up, so this is sort of the evolution of no code, right? How did this come about? Like, is it new? Is it something that is a recent phenomena, or what happened? Like, why are people talking about no code all of a sudden? So it's definitely not new. It's considered that Excel was probably the first no code tool, and that was like way back when. But if you go on Google Analytics, you will see, or Google Trends, and you type no code, you'll see the earliest mention of the word no code is around 2004 or 2003. And I guess that is when sort of WordPress first came out. So WordPress is definitely considered one of the original no code tools, because it allowed people without the development skills to build websites. That was sort of the first tool that allowed people to do that. And we still have WordPress; it's still being used, and it takes majority of the website traffic. Then around 2006, I think that's when Shopify came out. So it allowed people, again, without development skills, to build online stores. So again, solving a problem, without having to write code. So that happened. And then I think along the way, there's many tools that came about, but 2012 Bubble came out. Bubble is definitely not new. 2014 Webflow came out. Again, definitely not new. But not that much chatter about no code. Maybe people didn't think of it as no code, and they just thought of them as tools, and which they are. But something happened in 2020, and obviously that was when COVID hit. And all of a sudden, there was all this talk about no-code tools. And I don't know what led to sort of this term becoming popular, but definitely we know why there was a need for such a thing, because everything went online. E-commerce, went through the roof. Shopify demand exploded, and then people were just generally trying to digitize their businesses. And obviously, not everyone has the means to hire a developer or know how to code. So they probably started looking for tools that could let them do that and achieve the same result. And now you can see that it's just growing exponentially, and there's a new tool or multiple new tools almost every day. So that's the evolution of no code. Definitely not new. Maybe the term has caught on in the recent months and years since COVID, but these things have been around for a while. And Bubble and Webflow continue to sort of dominate. They both raised recent funding rounds, and they're only becoming stronger and better. But obviously, we have a lot more tools to pick from as well. So that was a little bit about no code. Hopefully, it clarifies what it is, what it isn't, and if it's new or not. So now that we're familiar with the background on no code, let's talk about some types of no-code tools. So generally speaking, they fall into these 6 categories, right? So you have a no-code tool to build websites, no-code tools to build apps, some no-code databases, or no-code tools to build a backend. So that would be to connect your website or apps to the database, or generally fetch data from other sources. You have automation tools, and then you have some machine learning and AI tools also available now. So to give you, and I'm sure there's more categories, and there's extensions, there's things that let you extend the functionality, but at a high level, sort of they fall into these 6 categories. And so to give you a few examples, and again, the list is long. There's no possible way I can cover all of them or mention all of them here in these small boxes. But to give you an idea and sort of make you familiar with where everything belongs, I just added a few examples here. So, websites, you have Card, super simple, one-page sort of landing page website builder. We have Typeform. Actually, I wanted to mention Typedream. Typeform is a form tool. So sorry for that typo. But for apps, we have Adalo, Glide, database. Definitely Airtable dominates the industry in this space. For backend, you have Xano and Backendless, and automation, Zapier and Make. Everyone is familiar with those. And then for machine learning, there's a few tools that are coming up now, but a couple of them that come to mind are MonkeyLearn and Levity.ai. Levity.ai, I think, is pretty new. But MonkeyLearn has been around for a while. So those are some examples. And also, all of these categories have tools specifically catering towards enterprises, right? So enterprise have different requirements. They have compliance requirements. They have security requirements. Not that these other tools not that these other tools aren't secure or compliant. It just depends. But enterprise is definitely catering more towards those types of requirements and making sure that there's, big companies are able to adopt them without those hassles. So for apps, you have this tool called Retool, you have Betty Blocks. For database, there's something called Basero. It's an Airtable competitor, something that you can, use in-house. For backend, there's something called Superblocks. automation tree.io, that was the tool that I first used at work. And then for ML and AI, there's something called obviously.ai. So again, just a few examples, definitely not an exhaustive list. There's many, many more, but hopefully this puts some names in some buckets and clarifies that for you. So before we get into the next session, the no-code development philosophy and thorough learning path, let me quickly take a look at some questions here. And let me check how we're doing on time. So one question that stood out: what about building a functional landing page using Canva? This still doesn't count as no. Well, again, I didn't want to specifically categorize something as no code or not, but that's why I mentioned the definition that if you are able to use a tool to solve a unique problem that you would have used code to solve otherwise, it's kind of considered no code. So there's no like right or wrong answers here. The only thing I wanted to mention was to be careful of being used as a marketing term. All right. So that was the only question that stood out for now, but I'll keep checking later on as well. So let's get into the next section, no-code development philosophy and learning path. So to build an app, generally speaking, and again, this is an oversimplification. At a high level, you need a front end. This is your user interface that your users will use, whether it be internal users or external users. You need a database to store the data to support your application, and then you need something in the middle to connect the two, to connect your front end to the database, and that's generally an API or the connector between the front end and the database. So if we were to build a solution using code, you would still be looking at sort of selecting a framework or a language or a database to support your application. So you'll have to pick something on the front end. You'll pick something from React, Angular. You need to pick a framework and a language to build your API. So you'll build something using Python and Django, and then you need a database to store your data. So MySQL, MongoDB, and there's many, many more. So just like you do that in the code world, you have to follow a similar approach in the no-code world as well. And there's options for everything. As I mentioned previously, you would pick based on, again, your requirements. You pick one for your front end. So some examples here like Software, Adalo, Glide. You'll pick one for your database, Airtable, Base-Row, or another tool that supports that. And then you'll need something to connect them. And so the good thing about no-code tools is that either they connect directly with the backend. For example, Software connects directly with Airtable. You don't even need a middle layer because Software takes care of that. But if you were to use a tool that doesn't talk directly to your database, then you would use something in the middle. And a lot of times you can rely on Zapier or Make to make those connections. So just like you do select frameworks for the code world, you have to follow the similar approach in the no-code world, right? So that the front end, the database, and the connector, and then so you have all these options available, but then you need to decide on a stack. So okay, we have all these options. How do we sort of pick which one to use? Again, you'll have to do your due diligence and look at your requirements and see which tool supports your requirements. Obviously, these tools come with a cost as well, so you would have to check all those things. But the approach that I like to take is what I call the Lego blocks approach, and that's what I really like about the no-code world. That all these tools that I've mentioned, they all, in some shape or form, talk to each other either directly or through a middle layer like a Zapier or Make. What that allows you to do is that if one tool provides a specific functionality and another tool provides another functionality, and you need to put the two together, you can do that. And as a sum of all those tools being put together, you form this application that is now, doing a lot of complicated things and providing an app that with a sort of a rich feature set. So that's why I like to call it the Lego blocks approach. You have all these different blocks, and you pick the ones that is sort of good for your particular use case, and you put it together to finally form sort of a full product. And just like you would do sort of with Lego blocks, you have something in mind you want to build, you try to find the blocks, you try it. If it doesn't work, you sort of take it out and you put another one. That's a similar approach I like to take here. So for example, you have an idea, you need a front end. So you pick a tool for your front end. So let's say I'm going to do my front end with software. Then you need what does your front end app that you have selected supports in terms of the backend. Oh, front end by software already talks to Airtable, so maybe I should just use Airtable. So I pick that from a data layer. Oh, but I also need some external. I need to make some external calls to get data from another source. So I need something that can do that for me. So I'll pick something like Xano. So you sort of keep going. Now that I have my app built, I need a landing page. So I pick something from the landing page. Or I need to put a chat on my landing page. So you pick something for that. So you sort of keep going. You need a blog. You need to send out emails. You need a CRM to store customer data from the blog. You also need a store, let's say, where you need to sell some products. So you pick something for that. Oh, and then you also need to connect payments. So you see, like, as your requirements come up, you start to sort of find all these blocks that somehow talk to each other and then satisfy your requirements. So you sort of keep adding them to sort of as a whole build your app and your infrastructure behind it. And generally speaking, like when I'm looking for tools, I always like to go and make sure that they're supported by some kind of a connector, either Zapier, Make, or something similar, so that even if I go down that road, I can later on talk to it and get the data from it as needed. So if all these tools are Lego blocks, something like a Zapier and Make is something that holds them together or puts them together. And as a whole, sort of your app comes together with this Lego blocks approach. So there's no sort of predefined stacks that you can just go with. Over time, you will start to form some patterns, and you will notice that, okay, for these kinds of problems, this is what I use. For those kinds of problems, this is the stack I use. But initially, keep an open mind, try different tools, see which one solves your problem, and just play with them. Just Lego blocks approach. So in terms of the learning path, start small. But you'll see that you're making progress pretty quickly. Even you can start with something as simple as Notion, and sort of go on from there. And but in no time, sort of you'll be on your way and be building pretty complex applications. But the point is to get started and start small. And to break it down further, sort of this learning path, you can sort of split it into easy, medium, and hard. So first one being the easy way, like going with something like Notion and Coda, because they have the database in it, they have the front end in it, and they talk to each other. So you don't need any other app to sort of build a mini tool. So you can start with that, or you can build a simple website using Card and do some personal automations. Identify things in your day-to-day life that that are repetitive, that you're doing manually. So look for those types of things and try to automate it. So that's definitely the best way to get started, just solving your own problems using these available tools. Then you can step into sort of the medium range. Once you're familiar with the easy range, you can then bring in some tools that are front-end focus, and then use something for the back-end and sort of try to connect the two to build sort of this fully featured application. And then so on and so forth. You get into things like Bubble or VWeb or Flutterflow or Webflow for building the website, and Xano for backend. So again, just an example. But the point is that walk before you run. It's not about learning the tools. You have to cultivate that kind of developer mindset. You can use one tool, but that's not going to cut it, because you need that sort of problem-solving mindset. You need to be able to identify the right Lego blocks for the right situation, and that only comes when you sort of go down this path. You can't really skip, or you'll find yourself, facing a bigger challenge. And it's not like it can't be done. Some people jump directly to Bubble; they just go all in. It's like, some people go directly to a coding bootcamp; they go all in. So you can definitely do that. But if you're doing that, on the side along with your job, and you're just trying to sort of get familiar with this, there's no rush to jump directly to the hard bucket. You can start small and solve problems and sort of go from there. And just be a kid with Lego blocks. Try to play, try to solve problems, try to build something, and over time these connections will start to form, and then you'll be on your way. So that is the learning path. And before we get into the next section, I'll take a look at the comments again. So your first one that jumped out: when would you use no-code tools, and when would you build things yourself? Taking into account performance, scalability, etc. Yeah, I actually had this in a later slide in one of the FAQs. Yeah, so it all depends, right? It depends on how quickly you need something up and running, what kind of, how much time you have, how much investment you have in terms of developer time. Is your idea already validated, or is it something that you're trying to still validate? So there's going to be a lot of different factors, and also factors such as, is it for your end users, or is it for your internal users? It doesn't need to look pixel perfect, or could it be good enough that it's usable, it doesn't look the best, but gets the job done, and it's only for internal users, but saves a lot of time. So there's going to be a lot of different factors that you need to rely on to answer this question, as I said previously. And then you also need to find the tool that will solve the particular problem that you are trying to solve. So yeah, there's no one size fits all answer for this, unfortunately. You just have to take the call based on the requirements, the time, the investment, the use case, and many other things. Will you make the slides available at the end? Definitely, we can do that. Cool. Yeah, I'll keep checking after every section. If not, I will also answer after the fact in the comments section. All right, so leveraging no-code as product managers. So I had to think a little bit about this because I'm not a product manager myself, but I've worked with several product managers, and I had to dig deep to really figure out where could PMs really benefit from learning a little bit about no-code, or using or learning a couple of tools. So here's my attempt at, and definitely challenge me if you think it's not, you don't agree with this. I'll leave it in the comments. Willing to discuss that, but here's where I think a few places where PMs can leverage no-code. So number one is internal tools, right? So there's a lot of times when there's a lot of data floating around. It's either sitting in Google Sheets or Airtable, or even your customer database somewhere, but there's no way to sort of make sense of this data. And typically, and this already kind of happens even before sort of no-code was a thing, where you would find a tool that could sort of make sense of this data and build a dashboard on top of it, right? So that's definitely one area where PMs can jump in and sort of visualize or help the teams visualize the data that we already have available, or the data that's being created on a daily basis. The other sort of aspect to the internal tools is sort of building a custom tool with for internal usage with something like Notion or Coda. So a lot of times when there's a need, the typical response is that let's go find a SaaS product that can solve this or help us do this. Maybe there's a chance that you can just build it, right? Because with SaaS products, what happens is you go buy a subscription to one, it solves a problem today, but then 6 months later, sometimes, oh, this doesn't solve your problem anymore, and you need to move on to a new SaaS tool. So sort of you keep going through this one tool to the other, and then you have these migrations. Maybe you can take an approach where you can use something like Notion or Coda to build it yourself in-house, and sort of continue iterating and updating it as the requirements change, because you will have the full control over it. You have the data right there. You have the front end right there. So you could try to build something like that. And you can also use now Airtable, because Airtable has an interface designer. So it's no longer just a sheet. You also can build a UI on top of that. So internal tools could be one. Other one is process automation. So there's many tasks that are done on a consistent basis. They're repetitive. There's a step-by-step process to them. And only if someone could automate it would save everyone or the team a lot of time. So you can definitely look into automating some internal processes, and especially if over the years your org has gone through several different SaaS products and your data is completely segregated or between all these different applications, and then has to go from one tool to the other, that's where automation shines. Where it, as I said, Zapier or Make bring all of these things together, they glue them together, and then you can have your data in a way, or you can automate the process that is typically done manually. And then if it's not, if that's not something that you can identify, you can also build a lot of automation actually within tools like Jira or Slack. They are now supporting a lot of automation within the tools. So for example, when this ticket is created, assign it to this person, then update the status and notify this person. All of that can actually be done within Jira or something like Slack. So think about those use cases where it could help you save time or your dev teams save time. Sort of an extension of automation is data migration or sync. So let's say you have to fetch data from a source on a nightly basis or a daily basis or a monthly basis, whatever that may be, and you typically just ping a developer that, hey, could you sync the data? Could you automate that using a tool? And there's enterprise automation tools as well. And definitely I built a giant flow that migrated data between several enterprise sources using Trade.io. So and again, no code. So you can definitely take a look at that. For example, you have a drop-down field somewhere, and the data has to be updated, from a backend source. So the developer has to take the list, download it, upload it, then push the code. Could that be automated by building such a flow? So think about those use cases so that you can take out that one task from your developer's list. And then again, another one would be supplementing the dev teams. So not in terms of automation exactly, but in actually building apps. So for this one, I think the approach would be that you introduce no code and low code within the organization. And for that, sort of you would have to have a couple of conversations with different people. Sort of you have to ease it in, because it might not be an easy conversation at first, because people are used to just doing everything with code. And if you just show up one day and say that, hey, we're going to use no code, that could come off as a little bit of a scare. So I would ease these conversations in and sort of present a use case where going with a tool like that makes sense, can help you save time, and help sort of refocus. And actually, even developers hate to spend time on these admin tasks or building, things that they seem, quote unquote, boilerplate. So could those be replaced by some no-code, low-code tools so that the developers can go back to focusing on the real product and the real use cases where most of their energy is required. So it's about freeing up the critical time versus saying that we don't need the developer anymore. It's not about that. So having that conversation, easing that in, and then sort of identifying which features or which tools or apps could be built using something like a no-code, low-code tool. So sort of just keeping your eyes and ears open about, hey, could we save time if we did this the no-code, low-code way, and then the team has all this velocity back on the other project. So supplement the dev teams. And a big one for no-code is prototypes and MVPs. I feel that product managers are already partnered with UX ahead of time to build these mock-ups. But it could be really powerful, especially in case of, say, you're going through a design sprint. Instead of building a mock-up, you just build a working prototype using one of these no-code tools. So, most of these no-code tools require a little bit of a sort of a design aspect to them. Something like an Adalo, you just get a canvas-like Sketch or Figma, but it actually also works. It's not just a static mock-up. It actually also converts it into a working app. So building prototypes, especially for idea and feature validation, could be huge. At the end of the design sprint, you have sort of static mock-up, a working thing that you can put in front of the users that are helping you research, and then help the developers build the MVP version along with so in this case, the prototype is already done, the feature is validated, but now it's time to bring it to market. But again, you don't want to wait 6 months to bring it to market because you don't know when you start asking people for money how it's going to go. So maybe a fast way to do that is to build an MVP, put it, especially, could be great for startups that are looking to move fast and are still sort of pre-revenue and trying to validate features, or even like big companies that are trying to bring a new product but don't have the resources to commit a large dev team to it. So that's another place where no-code can help. And then, finally, build a portfolio. So if you're an aspiring product manager, you obviously have to go do research and study different cases. But maybe you have your own idea and you want to try to implement it and try to scale it to show that you have the chops to grow a product. So you go just build it, right? So you can build a portfolio if you're an aspiring product manager and actually try to get users. So that could be much better than just a simple resume. Or if you're trying to start a side hustle, you have an idea, that it could work, but you don't have the means to hire a developer to do it. You could do it yourself, and you can iterate quickly using no code and find a winner. So there's various ways you can use no code as a PM. Is no code going to replace developers? No, absolutely not. You're not going to be doing their job, but you can help them. You can supplement it. You can sort of ease your own pain. You can automate some processes. So there's various ways you can use no code as a product manager. So quick time check and checking into the questions. Akash asks, what's the best no-code app for self-productivity? I am definitely a Notion fan, cannot vouch for it enough. What I like about it is that compared to an existing productivity tool is that my process changes on the daily, right? Sometimes I do things a certain way, sometimes I do things the other way. So with Notion, what allows me to do it is that I can update the tool that I've built with Notion based on my requirements. So I love the flexibility that it provides. Definitely there's other tools like that as well, but if you were to ask me, my answer will always be Notion. Which no-code tools provide flexibility in terms of design? So if you're talking about building a website and you want full flexibility, like down to a pixel, then definitely Webflow stands out. And if you're talking about building an application, again, you want to make it pixel perfect. Actually, Adalo, I think, is pretty flexible in terms of design for sort of, especially for beginners. But if you go up the chain of complexity, then you will end up, all roads lead to Bubble at the moment. There's a huge community, lots of support. They're pushing hard. They have, gotten recent funding. But in terms of flexibility, when it comes to design, Bubble will pretty much let you do anything you want. Anything that you can do with code, you can do with Bubble. Almost all things. And actually, they don't even call themselves a tool. They call themselves a programming language. They say Bubble is a visual programming language. And that just sort of reiterates their point on the flexibility. All right. So we have only 20 minutes left. So let's keep going. I wanted to give you a few ideas sort of as an extension of the last section, but I'll jump through this quickly so that I can also do a quick demo. So for ideas, just for inspiration, this has come from my own sort of exploration. So one thing you can build is, or try building is, automatic documentation from Slack. So this is a trend I've noticed no matter where I work. Lots of good questions are answered in Slack, but then they just stay there. And then a few days later, someone else asks the same question, and then someone else answers the same thing. So I wanted to sort of fix that. And so I came up with this idea where you can build documentation directly from Slack. So how can you do this, right? So you just have your chat happening in Slack, but then all of a sudden you come across a question that was answered that you think could be useful for many people. Could you do something to sort of capture that and automatically, obviously, you don't want to like copy paste and capture that and store it somewhere so that it shows up in some kind of an online documentation in a wiki page somewhere, and then in future people could just be pointed to that. So you can do that. And the way it would work is from Slack, you would listen on, either like a type of a question or an emoji reaction. You can have a specific emoji that if a question is replied or someone reacted to a question with that specific emoji, take that conversation, move it to Airtable using Zapier, and then you build a UI using software on top of Airtable, and that's a link that everyone knows. So before they ask any questions, they just go to that documentation page first. Software allows you to search through it, so they can just ask the same question in the software search, and then they will already have an answer that was answered in Slack. So that's one idea of an internal tool. Another favorite one of mine is an acronym dictionary. I hate how there's so many acronyms floating around. It's not great for effective communication. So could you build a tool to sort of solve that problem so that all the acronyms are stored in a place and can be accessed easily? You can easily store them in a sheet, but then who is going to go to a sheet to look them up? Everything happens in Slack or something similar. So could you build a tool or a Slack bot where people can just look up acronyms directly from Slack? Definitely. So in this case, it works in the opposite direction. You store everything in Airtable, but then in Slack, you define a sort of a slash command, and you say, look up this acronym for Airtable, and it responds with the definition for that particular acronym. So another tool you can try to build. Build a Readwise IO clone. You must have seen, if you're on Twitter, you will see people reply to the tweet saying, save this, but then they're using Readwise, and that's a paid app. Can you build your own version of Readwise? So definitely you can do that. So you leave a comment in Twitter. Again, you use Zapier, store the tweet in Airtable, and then for UI, you make your pick. Where do you want to go later and browse this? Could be Notion, could be whatever. So I'm just trying to give you ideas that will probably spark more similar ideas. You don't necessarily have to build these, but these are some of the problems that are solved all without code. This is a good one for PMs. Automatically triage customer issues. So a customer creates a bug ticket. Depends which tool the customers are exposed to. Let's say it's Jira Service Desk. So you can build an ML model to triage them into low, medium, or high priority. And then you update the ticket based on whatever that model responds with. And you can do all of that without code. I actually did it. So what happens is a ticket is created. You send it to a AI tool or no-code AI tool. So for example, I did it with Monkey Learn. And then but obviously you have to train the model first. So you will go into Monkey Learn first, create a model, and add a bunch of tickets. A bunch of pre-existing tickets, and then you will categorize manually low, medium, high. But after that, you will ask Monkey Learn to generate a model, and then that model is available to use with Zapier. So anytime a Jira ticket is created, you send it to Monkey Learn. It will triage it based on how you have trained the model, and then send that information back, and then you can update the ticket into low, medium, or high. So you can do that. Or you can just try to build a Jira clone. A lot of people don't like Jira, so build your own. Bring your own use case. Bring your own features, bring your own requirements, and build it. You can do it using Notion. You can do it using Airtable, Glide. All these tools can fully help you build a clone. Airtable is becoming a good one because the database is flexible, and now they have a UI on top of it, which allows you to comment. It allows you to sort of upvote, down. There's all these features that the interface is now providing. So you can fully build a clone using one of these tools. So those are some of the ideas. And for more ideas, all these tools actually have on their website their showcase page. Software has it, Bubble has it, Airtable has it. There's inspiration by Zapier, and there's pretty much all these tools have a showcase page. So if you're really interested in a particular tool, you go to the showcase and then sort of try to reverse engineer the template or how someone would have built it. That's a great way to learn as well, or just try to build it yourself. So great way to practice. All right, so we only have 15 minutes left. Let's see if we can do this. We might not have time left for questions, but I think I do want to show you. So I actually wanted to build an app live, and so the requirements for this particular app essentially are: let's say I'm a bike store, and COVID hit. I want to do sort of move things online. There's no walk-ins anymore, so I want to build an app where people can book maintenance appointments, maybe order parts online, and then say leave a testimonial for the services. So I want to make an app for this. I don't have the money to hire a developer. I'm just Googling at night. I'm going to figure this out. And the pages, generally speaking, are just like a home page. I want an about me page and a contact page. So these are the requirements of an app. So let's try to build it. Let's see how far we can take it. So I'm going to jump to a tool called JotForm. So this is there used to be just a forms tool, like Google Forms, but recently they have really upped their game and providing a lot of things now. So let's say I already mentioned the requirements: book maintenance appointments, order parts online, leave a testimonial, and then I have certain aspects or certain pages. So let's begin. So how I'm going to do this? So first of all, for the book maintenance appointments, I'm going to create a form. So this form is just going to be your typical, let me duplicate this tab. And I'll go to my forms. And I'll create a new form. Start from scratch. Classic form is fine. And this is the form to book the appointment. So I'm just going to say appointments. And it's drag your first question here. So this is just a form builder, like nothing fancy. So I'm just building a form. So first thing I need is person's full name, and I need their email, and then I need a way for them to pick a time slot. So we pick the appointment widget, and then in the properties here, I'll say I only do appointments between say 13 p.m. or 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. only on weekdays. These are 60-minute appointments. I only want maximum appointments per day. I only want 5, and only allow one person to schedule. Okay, so my appointments form is pretty much done. So people can pick a time slot here. They can click on different dates, similar to how Calendly works. So I'm just going to publish this. It's called online appointments. So the form is done. What else do I need? I need people to be able to order parts online and then leave a testimonial. So to do that, I'm actually going to jump directly into the app builder. So you see my apps here. So JotForm also has an app builder now. So I'm going to start from scratch. So here it gives me a few things. It's the app icon. So let's go ahead and change the icon, and I have something handy. So I'll just say logo. I'll give it a title. So this is the title of the app. Call it the bike store. Okay. And let's see what else I have here. So if I click on settings, it says my app icon is going to look like this, the one that I uploaded. My splash screen is going to look like this. The bike store, pretty good. So let's go back into the build. So now it says add your first element. So let's design. So let's see what pages we wanted. We wanted a home page, an about page, and a contact page. So let's create those. So on the home page, let me add a heading. I'll just say, welcome to the bike store. That's good enough. So that'll just form the placeholder for our homepage. I click on add new page here and name it about. And I click on add new page here again. I click it contact us. Okay. So the pages are there. I also want to change the colors a little bit. So for these, actually, let's not worry about the colors because of the time. Let's say these are good. But now let's add the features that we wanted. So on the home page, I want people to be able to click on book an appointment. So remember the form that we created? So if you click on the form here, it shows you all the forms that you have. So this was called online appointment. So I'm going to click that and add. Oh, it added it to the contact us page. We want it on the home page. Okay, so it adds it to the home page, but it looks like just pretty ugly. So let's make it a little bit better. So let's style it. So I'm going to change the style to something like this, and I'll pick calendar icon. I can change, say, center, and I want it to be of large size. Okay, so a link to book an appointment is there, and I can change the text here, say book an appointment. Okay, so that's there. So what else do I need on my homepage? Let's add a couple more things. Maybe let's add I want to add some testimonials so that people, when they land on my page, they can see some testimonials. So I pick the testimonials block from here on the left, and I can then go and update these testimonials. It gives me 3 by default. So let me delete one. And then, yeah, you can update the text. Let me change the speed to slow and some other customizations. So now I have some testimonials. And let's see what else. Let's maybe add some social icons. So I want people to be able to follow me on different platforms. So let's add that. Okay, I think that's pretty good for the homepage. Oh, we also wanted, if you remember in the requirements, we also wanted people to be able to order some bike carts online. So can we do that? Definitely. So if you see here, there's a widget called product list. So I'm going to go ahead and add that as well. So what this does is it creates this little store on my app. Let me move it. Actually, this is fine. And if I click on products, I can go ahead and add as many products as I want. So let's add a new one. Let's say helmet. Say it's $50. So the price, and I can choose an image. And I happen to have an image handy. So let's add that. Go back. Okay, for some reason it got added twice. Delete. Okay, and then I'm going to update the first product as well. Say pedal and image for that. So cool. So I already have a product. I can sort of show it in different, people can change the view. They can see it in a list view or a grid view or whatever. And in the product, I can also mention how many, like the quantity that I have available. So let's say I only have 5. That's the range. So let's say click on this products. Can I edit the quantity here? Yeah, there we go. No, okay, never mind. So there's a way to update, how much of the product you have available. So now you might be wondering, like, how do people actually order it? So guess what? You can add a payment integration right here. So if you use Square or PayPal or Stripe, you just need to go there, get the API key, add it here, and then right away it will connect it to your store. And you can have a store up and running like in no time. And you can ask people to provide their phone number, shipping address, and stuff like that. And we'll see the demo that how it works. So the homepage is looking pretty good. Let's quickly go to the about page. I need to close this. Let's quickly go to the about page and add a heading. Just say about us, and add some paragraph here. Say a great bike store in the heart of downtown. Yep. Okay, that's done. And of course, you have all these things here on the left. You want to add an image, you can do that. Actually, why not go ahead and do that as well. So now I have an image on the About Us page. And then on the contact page, I want to add, first, let's start with a heading. Say contact us. And then add, let's say I want to add a map to show the location. So here we go. So there's a map. Click on settings. And then I can provide the exact location. I'm not going to do that right now, but you get the idea. And then let's add a button to that says make a call. And so we have a call us button, and okay, that's all I need on my contact us page. So how are we doing? So at this point, the app is ready to be tested. So all I have to do is click on preview app here on top right, and check that out. The app is there. I can test it in different orientations. So portrait and landscape, I can see how it looks on tablet. Pretty good. I can use it on the desktop, so that's pretty good as well. And guess what? You can actually try it as well. If you scan this QR code, this app is now public. It will pop up on your phone. You can add it to your home screen, and you can test it out. So I'll leave that QR code up. And so let's test out the functionality, right? So book an appointment. So if I click on book an appointment, it says fill out form. So it shows up the same form that we created in the form builder, has my information already pre-populated because I'm logged in. But if you're not logged in, it will ask you to create an account. So I'm already logged in here. So let's say I want an appointment for July 14th at 4 p.m. So it says you've selected 4 p.m., submit. And there we go. My submission has been received. So, and this will also send me an email that, I booked an appointment for this much time or this so-and-so time. So that's good. So let's go back and now let's say I booked an appointment and I want to order some products. So let's see, let's add this to the cart. It automatically created a cart for me. It's pretty incredible. And if I go to the cart, it says I have this. Let's say I want 2 of them. Order now. It'll ask me for all the details that I mentioned while creating the store. I'll provide those and order. And the order is done. So cool. So maybe you're able to try the app as well. So where does all this data end up, and how does the owner of the app sort of find out like what's going on? So all of this data will end up in the forms. So if I go to online appointments, you see that shows me 1. It just means that there is a new entry that was made, and it shows me that this person booked a sort of a bike maintenance appointment for this particular time. And I can then use something like Zapier or even some inbuilt automation to send me an email every time someone books an appointment, so that I can go and look at it. So that's that's sort of the back end. And for the orders, let's see, how do we get to that? For that, I need to go to my tables, the bike store. And if I click on view table, it shows me that this person sort of made an order. And then if they provided all this information, so it says order received, I can change the status of the order and stuff like that. So I think that was just 15 minutes, and we built an app that met all the requirements that we mentioned in the slide. So let me go back here. Close this out. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, so we are able to book appointments, order parts. We didn't get to leave a testimonial, but that will be another form, and then you embed the form on the page. We do see the testimonials, and we created all these pages. So let's go back here. Okay, I had a few FAQs here that are in the slide that you can look at a later time. Since we are running out of time, I'll quickly go look at the chat. Yeah, there will be a recording. The enterprise software example, Jira allow tools to be connected. So with Jira, if you're in the cloud, it automatically allows you to connect to these different third-party tools. But obviously, you have to authenticate, and you need permission from your internal IT and security department. But Jira and Cloud does support that. Cool. I don't see any other questions that jump out at the moment, but I will take a look at the chat later and see if there's anything that I can answer offline. The recording will be made available, as well as the slides. And there's also a few FAQs that I added towards the end. So feel free to check those out. But if nothing else, we are ready to end session for today. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful, and you take away a few ideas that you go back and implement. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. I'm available on both platforms if you have any questions or if you would just like to connect. But until next time, thank you so much.